Great. Jordan, start with facing tempo. I mean, it used to be 5 years ago, everybody went fast, fast, fast. Now it doesn't seem to be quite as common, but Texas Tech doing it more so than others, and what problems that create?
Yeah, I mean, I think it, they're probably the highest tempo team in the league. The issues is really just alignment, assignment, and then obviously the as the game goes on, if you're thin somewhere, then it becomes a numbers game really more than anything, a number of snaps game. So, you just have to, you really have to be careful with how much you try to do, and when you try to do it, you just have to, alignment is the key, and then alignment, assignment behind that. So, yeah, I mean, it's always a challenge. There's a reason people do it. It's tough, and especially if they're moving the ball from hash to hash, and if they can get it from back to the middle, can give you some issues. So you just have to practice it, work it, be aware of it, know that it's coming, and so that's what we got to do over the next 2 or 3 days.
Coach, how would you evaluate the defense's performance against Baylor? And the reason why I asked that, obviously, the takeaways and what you guys worked on happened and it led to the win, but yards were still allowed. So how do you evaluate the defense in that game and even all year, knowing you're banged up and these opponents have high tempo, so they're going to put up yards, but you don't want to allow yards?
Yeah, yards are not any goal, anything that I've ever had that I say that you beginning of the season, you say, hey, these are our goals, these are third down, whatever. Not once in my career have I ever put total yards on there, because it doesn't matter. What matters, is scoring defense, third down defense, turnover margin. That's always been the rushing defense. That's my biggest biggest four. Sorry, and I've till that's proven otherwise, I'll always stand by that. So total yards is irrelevant. The thing that I was proud of the most is the last. If you look at the drive before halftime and the last 4 drives of the game, so we have to go back out before halftime. We make them punt in the last 4 drives of the game. I think I could be wrong. Were fumble, interception, force a field goal after an offensive turnover, and then the last drive of the game being essentially a turnover on downs as the clock winds out. So, if I look at that with the turnovers and scored 9 points, that's what we haven't been able to do, and it was important for our kids to be able to do that, and it be the biggest difference in the game. So, I was extremely pleased with how we finished, how we competed. It wasn't perfect. I don't know if it's ever going to be, but total yards, I could care less.
You mentioned tempo. Do you rely on your linebackers or your safeties? Who do you rely on to get you guys organized?
I mean, linebackers and safeties have to communicate and get people lined up, but everybody in a tempo situation has got to be, on the same page and know exactly, signal, call, alignment, assignment, because you don't have a lot of time to communicate between positions in that scenario. So, it's just, again, you practice it, you prepare for it, and every position out there has got to, essentially get themselves lined up and be ready to go, because they don't have a lot of time to talk between the other guys. They may have to if you're adjusting a formation or a shift or a motion, they may have to in between, when that happens. But as far as getting themselves lined up and communicating the call, there's not a lot of time to do that. So, but our linebackers and our safeties, whether we're going off of a hand signal or going off of, maybe we called 4 plays in the huddle, like an offensive script. Maybe we did that. They got to know. They'll communicate that way. But every person's got to know what's going on, be aware of the tempo that they're getting, and get lined up.
What about subbing? I mean, you got to have your group right there with you.
Yeah, it's almost, unless they sub, it's almost impossible, to get, especially mass subs. So you have to have a plan on
Third down and nickel.
Yeah, right. Out of your base stuff, what do you, the situation that presents itself, like what do you need to be, which may not be ideal at all times. Again, that's why people do it.
Every coach would like to have 11 guys, put them out there every week, and have some continuity throughout the year. You have secondary, you haven't had that blessing, shall we say. It seems like you're filling holes every week. What does that do? What does that do to you? I mean, of any place where they have to act together, that's where it is.
Well, early in the year, it was to the point of catastrophic. And I go back to the Kansas game when you get in that situation, and they're forcing you to adjust to a lot of things. It's just really, really hard when you start losing pieces and you're bringing up younger pieces that maybe throughout the week or even through their career are not ready for that. But I think what it shows, between our players and our staff, secondary-wise, is now we're in Game 6. The same situation happens, and we continue to adjust throughout the Baylor game. And so, to where early in the year, you're right, it's there's not a lot of continuity. But now, the more guys play, which is the experience is the best teacher. The more guys play, the easier in the games. Okay, we got, somebody's down, got to bring the next guy up. Well, now they've had the experience to go out there, play a series, come over here, let's get on the board. Is what they're giving us. Is what we need to go to where 4 games ago, that guy's sitting there going, whoa, So it's totally different 4 games later, and that's the only way to get better at that is the experience. The bright things for the future, you're going to have a bunch of guys that now have that in-game experience, and you can't mimic that in spring practice or anything else.
Coach, Neil was talking about how you guys have moved Dante around on the defensive line, basically at all 4 spots to kind of try to counteract what teams are scheming against him. How has he adjusted to that? I mean, is that something you guys have done like last year, or would you prefer, if you could, just put him at his spot and let him go? I mean, what are your thoughts there? What are you seeing with the way?
Well, the thing that he gives us this year as opposed to previous years is the ability to play outside, especially in some heavier personnel sets that quite honestly for the last 2 years, that is how we've been getting attacked a lot with a lot of 12 personnel, a lot of 13 personnel. For the Big 12 kind of moved that way for a little bit. Now I think it's kind of moving back to what people know, and that's football's just cyclical like that, but he gives us that ability, and it's good for him too. It shows that he can be versatile inside and outside. Whether we do that moving forward, it really just depends on the opponent per week. Dante, he likes it. He likes being able to rush from different techniques and spots, and so he always trying to get me to drop him into coverage. I'm like, no, but we're not doing that. So.
Are you seeing though that teams are actually? I mean, they're going out of the way to double him more so this year.
Yeah, I mean, Dante is a unique combination of size and explosion and speed and athleticism, and so wherever you put that guy, whether it's in the run game or protection, people are going to know, and so if they, quite honestly, if they don't, ID him, that's probably, or at least I hope for him, a sign of disrespect. But most of them do, and because he can create that type of issue. So, yeah, you try to get him moved around still within the scheme of the defense that either whether you're playing this technique or this technique, your job in this call is still essentially the same. So you have to keep it, within that framework of what he's good at doing, number one, and then what he's done up to this point for a long time. So, but Dante's really really taking it and comes in extra and works and learns, and so good for him, good for us.
Smith, Morton, Shao. Obviously, you got to prepare for all 3. How do you break down Do you work more on Smith than Morton because Shaw's only thrown 10 passes, or how do you?
You just have to go off the video that you're given. You can't. You're not going to go down this deep rabbit hole of two quarterback offense and approach it that way. Both players have unique skill sets. Both can run. Both are athletic. Both have big arms. Both can locate the ball. So you prepare for what you're given on film.
My understanding is it's basically same block of plays for all three guys, right? So it's
It's all the same.
He also said that every week they come up with something new, some different look. How does that affect your preparation for him?
Yeah, you have to adjust on the run. You have to adjust on the fly, and take what they give you, break it down, and when you have the time in between the series, or maybe you have time within the series, depending on how that goes. If there's a timeout, or and then you have to have in your head a set of calls, or whether it's front by coverage that are good for those sets of plays. If it's something you haven't seen in a while, if it's outside zone team, or triple option team, or a gap scheme power team, you have certain things in your defense that are good for all those things. So you try to go to things that you've worked at certain times that your kids know. But if your kids don't know it, you can't do it. It's not,
Coach, Charles Woods, even if he's able to come back on just in a limited basis, there's probably some kind of mental positive to that, just for your guys, just to have him come back, and obviously, what even on a limited basis, what could he bring for you guys?
I mean, it's anytime. I've always said this about leadership. Your best players are your best leaders. Essentially, the guys, make plays. Guys respond to that. And so, if he's able to help us in any way, shape, or form, it would be a boost to our guys.
Notice just giving up 23 sacks. Is that style of play, more drop back passing? What are you seeing there that's causing them to give up 23 sacks?
I think that when I want to watch film, I don't necessarily think it's a schematic offensive issue or personnel issue. I think that a lot of times when teams see this style of offense, every now and then their approach is to gamble a little bit and send more than they can block. Now the bad part about that is usually at the end of that play, somebody's band's playing. You hope it's yours, but
that's a high number for a tempo offense.
Yeah, it is. But when people, you see that some on film, with some zero and some overload blitzes, and that's probably the reason why that they're that high. Just looking at it, it's not like they drop back pass and get sacked a lot. That's not there.
Coach, is there a benefit having just played at Baylor? So a little bit of an aggressive team, tempo, kind of a similar team. Your defense just played well, caused turnovers, and have this game be right after. Is that a benefit? Can you draw from that?
Baylor is a team that's extremely aggressive. I said this last week. You look at it two ways. You're either playing 2 first downs or 2 second downs. You watch Texas Tech; they're the same as far as how they attack the down and distance situation, based on where the ball is. They converted, I think it was 7 or 8 fourth downs against Texas, which essentially ended up being the difference in the game. They were able to kind of eat up the time of possession, play a little keep away. So you just have to, again, you have to know that going in. You have to expect it, know how you're going to play. Those. I don't want to call them waste downs, because waste downs are usually second and shorts or third and shorts deep in the red zone. So I don't want to say waste downs. You just got to be smart with how you play those, second and third down, and that's really only approach you take.
Is there any extra nicety, I guess, having it back to back, just for the fact that you can tell your guys while you're in practice, hey, you just did this?
No, not really, because it's 2 totally different styles of offense. So it's is night and day difference how their approach is schematically. Where Baylor's going to get to their intermediate downs by the run game. Texas Tech can do both run game or pass game, just like any other, spread, air raid, whatever you want to call it. They use the run game. They use the pass game a lot like they do the run game.
Okay, thanks, Coach.
Thank you.